John Walsh from Massachusetts. You spoke very forcefully in a philosophical vein about the power of the state, and certain pessimism can come out of that, but I'd like to disagree and raise a different question. I think maybe we shouldn't be so pessimistic, because before this war started, there was an enormous popular opposition to it. If you look at the Korean War, and there was none, Vietnam War a little bit, and this much more. So people, I think, are waking up to these colonial wars. But I guess in the matter of the state, I'd like to say, since the state is so powerful, a nation state is so powerful, what happens when a nation state is able to embed itself in another nation state? And I'm speaking specifically about this war, not being just a war for oil and empire, but also a war for Israel. And Mearsheimer and Walt point out very well, although what they said was not new, that without AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, this war couldn't have happened. They were the decisive factor that pushed us over. I don't think we can ignore that. And I don't think we can ignore the power that a state has over our state when it can run its own police, run its own spying agencies, run everything else, and then embed itself in ours, which means that we cannot act rationally. And I'd like your comment on that.
Well, obviously, the Zionist influence on policymaking in the current war was important, and any complete understanding of recent events requires us to take it into account. I myself do not consider it, however, necessarily decisive. It was important, it was significant, it remains significant, it must be dealt with by people who seek peace. But this government has gone to war many times before without a Zionist influence at all. And the same motivations that have led it to war at other times may easily lead it to war again, even if every Zionist in the world dropped dead tonight. So I appreciate your comment. I think it is important. I don't minimize it in the least, but I think we need to keep it in perspective that the oligarchs have several important interests. The interests of the Likud party lately have been high on the list, but they have others that are important and perhaps even more decisive. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm Zinta McDonald, and my husband and I live in Honduras. The speaker stated that many Americans don't wish to really accept responsibility for their own actions. In order to accept responsibility for your own action, you do have to be an individual, and you do have to not be afraid of what other people think. But unfortunately, we are all afraid of what everybody else thinks, because we all are part of a society, we have a job, we have a position, we have a family, we have to earn money. Now, money is a very important subject. Nothing works without money. Why don't the Americans quit paying their damn taxes and assume responsibility for their own activities, create their own private schools, their own private hospitals, their own private everything? Why are they looking to the government to save them? Save yourselves.
Well, in a way, my reply to you is similar to an earlier reply. Americans once were more self-reliant. There was a time when they did take responsibility for educating their children and protecting themselves on the local level. But a long and complex history has intervened between those times and today. And along the way, the character of the American people has changed, in my view, for the worse. They've become more slavishly dependent on the government. They've fallen for the tricks again and again and again. it's no secret, many commentators have stated for centuries that people would rather live easily than live by toil. And that means they'd rather live by having someone called the government rob and give them part of the loot than they would work and earn their own living. So more and more people have been led to accept the government's handouts or gifts or favors or however they arrive at this loot as okay and as better than the alternatives. I think what is fundamentally required is a moral reawakening, a recognition that when the government gives us something, we are receiving stolen property. And that government took that money by threatening violence against innocent people. We need to ask, does this policy pass the mother test, as I call it? In other words, if you say the government ought to do something, I ask you, would you agree that if this policy were resisted by your mother, the government should kill her? And if you disagree, then why are you favoring this policy? Because every government policy involves an implicit threat to kill those who resist. All they have to do is keep resisting one stage after another, and then the government kills them. These people are robbers and murderers if need be. They want us to think of them as ever so ordinary people doing good. And of course they want us to think that. That eases their task enormously. If we all viewed them as robbers and murderers, we wouldn't tolerate this another 24 hours. We'd run these people out of the country with pitchforks. But our thinking about them has been so distorted and falsified and propagandized that we are completely confused about the nature of the situation in which we find ourselves. And hence, these crimes have become institutionalized and even favored by a large number of people. Yes, sir.
Bob, we need to wrap up.
Okay.